Now, this question, I don't want to answer it in particular. I want to answer it with the rest of the upcoming two questions. The second question is, what is server-side programming? And the last one is, what is client-side? All these three questions are somehow integrated to each other, and I want to illustrate them using a diagram. So let's jump into the diagram to illustrate that. Here I drew three main components that I told you or asked you about. What is server, what is client, and what is server-side programming? Now, to understand the relationship between these three components, let's take a real case scenario where we experiment with it every day. You open your Instagram application on your mobile and you start browsing or scrolling to see the feed or to see the news from your friends or the people you are following. Now, did you ask yourself how the data is coming to your mobile? Yes, you are following someone, but how actually in details these data, including photos, comments, profiles, data, all that stuff, coming to your mobile and presented in the user interface, in the application? Well, your application, if we want to define it, is a client. The application that lives on your phone is a client. That client is asking some servers around the internet. Those servers belongs to Instagram company or Facebook. So you have a mobile. The mobile is not the client. The application that lives on that mobile is the client. So that application will request the data or the photos, videos, whatever data you want to retrieve, and that comes as an HTTP request. You don't need to worry about that for now. So think about it as a request. You ask, or the application asks the server for this information. This server will send this request or pass proxy this request, or in a simpler word, just take that request and push it to the programming language, the server-side programming language. The server-side programming language will understand the request, process it. Well, let's say you are requesting a photo. The server will send that request or forward that request to the back-end server. You can build a back-end server using any language. You can use it, you can build it with PHP, Python, Java, C#, whatever it is. That language is listening to that request, and then it will process that request, and it will take a look at the database if you are looking for photo or some information, and finally it will say, okay, fine, I found that photo that you are looking for, so let's put it back to you. And the programming language send back the response to the server, and the server will take that response and push it ultimately to your application that lives on your mobile. And that's how data is presented on your mobile. So all this communication happened to the server, and from the server to the back end, and the back into the server. All this stuff is happening behind the scene and you don't know about it, right? So what is a server basically? A server is, as we said, is a computer listening for incoming request and forwarding that request to the programming language. The forwarding process is done by a specific server. We call it, we have multiple options to choose, such as Nginx, Apache, and many more. Or probably you have Node.js that integrated with the server. So the server will take that response, this Nginx or Apache, will take that response and then forward it to your main programming language, the backend language, which is JavaScript, PHP, or whatever it is. Now, JavaScript, we mean about Node.js. You don't need to worry about technologies for now. Think about the high-level system overview. Now, another question is, can I access the same data from a different client? Now, what is client again? It's just your application that lives on your phone. Fine. If you visited Instagram from the browser on your laptop, you will get the same data, right? Now, how's that possible? What is the actual work of your browser? Is that the same as your application? Well, on some level, yes. The user interface, or the front end, we call it the front end of your Instagram that is on your browser, on your laptop, is doing the same job as your application on your mobile. They are both clients. So, in general, we can have multiple clients communicating directly to the same server. If we assume we have one server, generally speaking, we have multiple servers, but let's just assume Instagram, it just have one server, one big giant server. And all these clients, your phone, your application on your phone, your Instagram account from the desktop you visited, or probably you have two mobiles and you access the Instagram account from both mobiles, then those clients can be multiple clients accessing the same server. Cool. Now, these clients developed by a certain technology. If we talk about mobile, it's probably developed by a Swift language. If we are talking about native iOS, or probably Java for Android, or probably React Native. You don't need to worry about technologies, as I said, but if we want to understand the client side also developed as part of the ecosystem. So when we talk about the entire program as Instagram, they have developers working on the mobile application, and they have developers working on the client side or the website that you visit normally from your laptop. And they have another team who is working also on the server only. And they have another team probably working on the database, and another team working on the back end, the server side. So that's in terms of a big company. But if you are developing a small personal to medium size website, you can do this stuff all by yourself. Yes, I'm not joking. So if we take this and we go back to the definition of web development, the web development basically is the essential components of these three components, or two components, client side and server side. So the client side, we call it front end. This front end can be a website, can be a mobile application, right? Or can be a smartwatch or something else, or gaming. Now, the front end, when we specifically talk about web development, we mean we are targeting the user interface that you normally see when you visit a website. Take any sense. If you go to Google, you'll find the logo, you have the place to type, and then you have a button. So this is, we call it front end. The front end, by definition, is the work around building the user interface and the interactivity with it. So a front-end developer is a developer who is responsible of building the look and feel and the user interface that normally consists of images, photos, animation, colors, themes, all that stuff done by a front-end developer. The back-end developer, which is when we talk about the server side, the back-end developer is a developer who is responsible of building the server-side technology of a specific website. So this technologies enables the clients to communicate with. And this server side can be done using Node.js, Python, PHP, C#. It doesn't really matter what language you choose, they all perform the same goal with a slight different in syntax. Now, if we want to relate that to human languages, if I told you, how are you, in English, you will understand what I'm talking, right? Assuming you know English. And if I told you كيف حالك, which is an Arabic sentence asking you the same thing, how are you? If you know Arabic, you will understand me. Now, both languages, Arabic and English, performing the same goal, asking the same question, but in different syntax. It's the same thing in programming. We have Node.js, Python, PHP, C#. Different programming languages but they are ultimately performing the same concept. So it's like a flavor, whatever you prefer, just stick with it. So for me, for example, I like to code in PHP and Node.js. Some people like to code in Python. So ultimately, what we want to develop is a product that we can ship it to our customers. Our customers mean normal users, end users. So that product consists of front end, which is the normal website that you see, and the back end, which is the server. And what is full stack? Full stack, on the other hand, is a developer who is responsible of building both sides, the front end and the back end. So for example, I'm a full stack developer. If you come and ask me, well, I need a website similar to Instagram. Well, it's not like big size, but not like Instagram. Let's take another example, like Facebook. Facebook, you can access it from the browser as well as from a mobile, and they have a server, backend server. So I am responsible of building the entire product from A to Z, including the user interface, the backend, the database, the authentication, as you can see here. So the backend developer also is responsible of dealing with data, storing data. Now, there are different types of data storage. We have NoSQL data, we have SQL data, we have object storage, all that stuff. You don't need to worry about the details for now, but think about it. It's just an entire system of storing data, processing, and dealing with it. Security, authentication, this is also part of back-end development. So back-end development, authentication, for example, is the login, sign up, log out, all this stuff that we normally use is done by a back-end developer. And that summarizes the web development in general. Now, web development, I would say it's way more than just building websites. Web development is the essential part for every other field. So if you go back to this diagram, there are multiple fields in the industry: mobile development, game development, desktop development, and different stuff. All of them, at some level, they need web development, especially the back end, where, for example, if you build a mobile application, you need some back end service because you don't want to store the data on the mobile. The data normally stored outside the mobile. And this outside, we refer to it as a cloud normally. And that cloud is just a server lives on the internet, listening for requests and providing the data back if needed. So that's the idea of web development and its ecosystem in general.